Welcome back to True Print for Life. I'm your host, Christina Vera.
And I'm your co-host, Maylin, Sambois.
Welcome back for another amazing episode. As you know, we're super excited and always looking for great talent that we can bring onto the podcast to talk more, whether it's about business, lifestyle, just personal advice and tips and all the things. And today we're really excited to bring on another co-host with us, Miss Faith Rivera. And we are excited to learn more, Faith, about your journey, about just any maybe tips and tools you might want to provide our listeners. And so just to give you a little bit of background about Faith, Faith is a dynamic speaker, grant writer, and business strategist who has helped women lead nonprofits and service-based businesses, raising over $8 million in funding, which is amazing. As a CEO of Alo Civitas.
Yep.
All right. I want to make sure I say that right. Consulting. She empowers mission-driven leaders to scale with clarity, confidence, and sustainable strategy through her signature Civitas method. With more than a decade of experience in nonprofit leadership and strategy design, Faith is known for turning complexity into clarity and bold ideas into action. She inspires women leaders to grow their impact without burning out. Welcome, Faith.
Thank you guys for having me today.
Yes, we're excited to have you, especially like that burnout piece, because right now that is feeling super real and not just a tagline. So tell us a little bit more before we dive into your amazing strategies, just a little bit about your background, like where you're from and kind of like just your journey into this now entrepreneur world.
Thank you both for the space today. I've been really excited for our time together. My background, I would say, is probably not the traditional one for people who start their own business. I think a lot of the people that I've met, they knew from a young age they wanted to be an entrepreneur. I, interestingly enough, grew up with an entrepreneurial father. My dad owned his own business my entire life. So I've literally never known anything other than having parents that run their own business. My dad raised me on his own, so that's all I've ever known. But, you know, being the oldest, the only girl, the stubborn-headed child of the group, I was like, I have to do anything but that. But life has an interesting way of working out. And so I went to college knowing I wanted to help people, didn't really know what I wanted to do. But I knew that it had to be something giving back to others. That's always been a really core value of mine from a very young age. So I got my degree in educational psychology, really focused on human development and how to create programs and systems that serve others. And then, again, still didn't know what I wanted to do and got the first job that was offered to me was in career services. So I was working with college students, I was working with my student workers and really helping them figure out a plan for their life. And I loved that. I loved the mentorship. I loved really getting to pour into other people and was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. So went to grad school for higher ed. I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to work my way up within the higher ed system and be a dean of students or dean of something. And then about 6 months into grad school, got offered the opportunity to start at the ground level with a brand new college and career readiness program. And was started being introduced to the grant world and the nonprofit space. And that's, I think, where the fire started, seeing what social impact programs could really build for the community. And honestly, I probably was not qualified or ready for the job when it was given to me. I was 22, 23, running a $1.3 million budget program with a very small team. You know, I had my director and assistant directors, but I was not ready to do that. And then fast forward, started getting into the nonprofit space a little bit deeper, running a variety of different grant programs throughout the state of Texas. And then about 3 years ago, started my full-time entrepreneurial journey and moved up here from Texas. So I don't think that I really even thought that my business was going to become my full-time career until about a year in. Because I started seeing the impact it was having on people, and people were gravitating towards what I was putting out there, and people were saying what I was doing was needed. And I think that, so about 2 years ago was really when I saw, okay, this is not just a hobby, this is an actual calling, and this is how I want to live my life moving forward.
That's awesome. I love that. And you just did a conference not long ago that was very successful. You had a lot of women and allies, I like to say, that were there. And the topics that you shared were pretty great, too. So kind of go in alignment with your mission and what you're trying to do. Like, what was your biggest takeaway, I would say, in those early years? Like, I'm going to go back really quickly. For those people that are like, listen, I'm in this position and I'm not qualified. Like, I don't even know how they got me here, why they got me here. Like, what is going on? Yeah. what are some of the things that, looking back, maybe some lessons learned that you can give to someone that is right now in that position that you were at 22 years old?
Sure. I think that's a great question. I mean, still half the time I wake up and I'm like, am I really qualified to do this? So I think a lot of us have that imposter syndrome, especially as women, like, should I be here? Am I qualified to be here? So I think first and foremost is just show up as your best self within any space that you operate. Just know that you're there for a reason. And I always try to look at every situation, every job that I've had, every relationship that I've built as a stepping stone. And what can I give and what can I learn in this position or in this opportunity? And I think that's really what has pushed me forward. Is it's not just about me, like it's not just about what is in it for me, but really what can I grow within or what can I give back so that, others are better off for it too.
That's awesome. Did you have a mentor? Did you have someone that was like, Faith, come here, little girl. Let me help you out. Did you have anyone like that?
No, not really. In each position, I had a supervisor or boss that, would try to teach me the tricks of the trade. But it really wasn't until the last year and a half being here, really ingrained in the women business community in Columbus, that I had other business owners come around and say, here's what we're doing. Let's do it together. Because I truly believe we're better together. Again, I had my dad to kind of look at. He's run a business for 30, 35 years. And there were times that I would reach out to him and ask his advice, or people that I knew were at the position I wanted to be in. And I had mentors along the way, but not someone who was like, Faith, you need to be an entrepreneur. Here's how you do it. I kind of just stumbled my way along and figured it out as I went.
That's awesome. And would you say, has there been any surprise, when you made that decision to fully kind of jump into the entrepreneurial world, has there been any surprises for you along the way?
Yes, there's so many. I thought that I was lazy a lot, even though, which is ironic because I burnt myself out so many times when I was in my early career. I just didn't realize how much I actually had on my plate. When I left my old job and transitioned to entrepreneurship, I took those first couple of months and really didn't do much just to recover from our move and from the transition from corporate to more of the entrepreneurial space. But I also realized that I can do a lot with a little bit of time. Mm-hmm. So it's been trying to figure out that balance of how do I operate best, not what everyone else tells me. I'm not a morning person. Do not put meetings on my calendar before 9 a.m. I learned that early on. I also don't like to do things in the evenings. So I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned is to build my schedule, build how I work with my team and my clients around what works for me. And that way I can show up as my best self and be able to build in those times for rest and recovery too.
Wow, that's powerful, because that goes against a little bit of, the social life and the networking life. So how have you been able to navigate that and still accomplish what you need to get done?
Sure. I try to put boundaries on my calendar. So there are some nights, that there's events, whether it's a networking event or a social event, but trying to really be mindful of how many days in a row I will let myself be out. Because even though I am very social, I definitely am an extrovert and love being around people, we all also need our time to just be at home in our PJs on our couch, right? Cuddling with my dog. So I'll look at my calendar and rearrange things if I need to. So if there is a evening networking event on, say, a Wednesday, I'm not doing anything Tuesday or Thursday. That is social and requires me to be on, because I think as a business owner, it's so much of who I am, not just what I do. And if I'm not careful, I don't have time to shut off or just be Faith, not Faith, the business owner. Right. And I've had to learn how to make that difference. And even with my husband, when we're in having conversations or relaxing, we have to set those boundaries too of we're not allowed to talk about work right now, because then my brain goes on and thinking, ooh, I could do that or that. I need to reach out to that client. So that would probably just be one of the biggest things that I've learned and even try to balance now is, when can I just be Faith and when am I Faith, the CEO?
I love that.
Oh, that's such a good takeaway.
Such a good point, because I think that, especially with your partner, I think because you obviously could easily talk about work or your children. Nothing's wrong with talking about either topic, but it's, to your point, it's just can we not? Being able to because I find that sometimes, when you are constantly, if you're going out, you just want to talk about other things. Yeah. But if you don't kind of really have that conversation up front and like, listen, we're not going to sit at this dinner and talk about work the entire time or like the kids the entire time, or like our parent, like whatever's like the main topic that you're always talking about. Like, and I think that that's really, I like that you said that, because I don't think oftentimes we are really like defining like, hey, there are times where we can, right?
Yeah.
Like, but there are times where you just like, I don't want to talk about this, or I want to be very intentional in saying like, we're going to go out, we're going to really decompress.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Both my husband and I are in very high stress environments. He's in the medical field and works a lot of hours. And then, building up something from scratch takes a lot of energy and time. And so we've had to start being accountable with each other. It's like, yeah, we want to talk about our day and we want to hear all the good and the bad and the ugly and everything in between. But at what point, normally it's around like 8:30 at night, within the last 30 minutes to an hour before bed, it's like, okay, no more work talk, put the phone on do not disturb, don't check that email, and just, it's going to be there tomorrow. We can talk about it tomorrow. We can focus on it tomorrow. Because if not, your brain doesn't shut off and then your rest isn't as helpful. Your relationship isn't being built because you're just focused on work, not each other.
Yeah.
Well, that's so good. I hope you guys took notes, everybody listening. This is so good. I mean, it's good for a lot of things. Not just like a partner, but like a friendship too. Because sometimes you find especially if you work together.
Yeah, we talk about business all the time.
We can go nowhere without be like, oh, we'll have a quick meeting. They see us together. We have a whole meeting, strategy planning. And it's just how our brains work. Right? So sometimes like, no, we're just going to talk about the beach today. Like, let's just think about a vacation or something. So I love that. That's great.
Yeah. And what would you say, Faith? I mean, you are obviously working, and I think right now, like especially in the nonprofit sector, right? There's so much happening. I mean, it's happening in the for-profits. It's every private partnership. Everything is a little different right now. And so when you think about kind of what you're seeing in terms of just working day to day with your clients, as we're navigating, funding and the needs are just increasing, but resources and supplies and all the things are becoming what feels like, and, that a little more limited. And what are you finding, like, as organizations are, and if you're listening, if you run an organization, if you're a part of an organization, if just running your household, right? We tell people, right, like you define what leadership is. You define what running is, and I'm putting in quotation marks for those of you watching, because I think we all have our own definition of what that means. What are some of the tips and tools you're providing some of your clients around really assessing, like being able to look at, the infrastructure of one's organization right now to ensure that we are not just turning into these reactive robots, but really pausing to like review what is our why? What is our impact here? What is within our capacity before making major decisions or beginning to find ways to implement strategies within your organization?
I think that's really important. Like you mentioned, there's a lot of change going on at all levels of government with funding. Even a lot of businesses are feeling it too. Like it's just a big time of uncertainty. And so with a lot of my clients, one of the very first things that I ask if they bring up something new, whether it's a new funding source, new program idea, et cetera, it's what value would this have? And is it worth it? Is it aligned with your values? Is it something that is going to detract you from other things that are more aligned with your mission and what you're wanting to put forth? Just because there is a need doesn't mean that you have to be the one to fill it. So one of the big things that I've been promoting with my clients right now is partnerships. I feel like a lot of funders are moving towards a more collaborative model of funding. So yes, one organization may get the funds, but how could it be dispersed or support multiple organizations or multiple community partnerships? Because I do believe that we're better together, and someone else's skills, knowledge, expertise, funding could meet the need that your clients are seeing, but you don't have to be the one to do it all. So I think that's the first thing, is using that discernment of like, is this a good opportunity or investment? And then I would say the second thing is really looking at energy and time capacity. It's not just in terms of workload, but it's also like, what time would you even have on your calendar to be able to do this? What time do you have scheduled in to take off? What time are you all as a team pouring into each other? Because a lot of us do this work because we feel called to it, or it's a passion or our mission. But also, if we are not taking care of ourselves, we have nothing left to give. And that is a huge hill that I will die on, is that we as leaders don't have to be completely depleted in order to achieve our calling. Like, we have to take care of ourselves too. And I'm guilty of it too. I've experienced burnout 4 times. Like, it's literally a part of my story, and something I still struggle with to this day is saying yes to too many things. But there's no guilt around taking a Sunday to just do nothing. My husband and I literally have one coming up this weekend. I told him nothing is going on the calendar Sunday. No social plans, no chores. Like, I don't care if we just stay in our PJs all day and watch football. Like, we're not doing anything. And even just the release that he was like, what? We can do that. I was like, yes, we can do that. So I think giving other people permission to take care of themselves too as a leader is something that is really important. And a lot of even nonprofit leaders or business owners that I work with, they forget that they're allowed to give themselves permission to take time off too. It doesn't just have to be for the holidays. Like, maybe you just need a day to decompress and recharge. So looking at capacity and then looking at time off, and looking at, is this aligned with what you're really trying to put forth with your organization?
That's really good. That's a really good advice that we're going to take into consideration. And those of you taking notes, I feel like today's going to be a full day of notes. I seen the work that you do. We have been blessed to work alongside of you, right, for certain projects. And you have a really great eye, right, to kind of like point out certain things that some people are not looking at. So I would say this: if you can give us some advice to someone that doesn't have, right, the resources to get to you yet, if they're writing a grant right now or a proposal, right, like what are some of the things that they probably want to focus on in order to get a winning proposal?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and something I think is constantly front of mind for people. First is showing impact. What data, what stories do you have that show why the work that you're doing is important? Unfortunately, and fortunately, depending on how you look at it, like, data talks, right? Like, funders want to see that what you're doing, it works. And even if you don't have data yet, what academic research or what your resources out there can you pull from research centers or academic researchers that show why what you're doing works? Like, I have a newer client that is in that boat. Like, she's been under operation for less than a year, but she built her model on research. And so we used that in our recent grant proposal to say, we may still be new, we may still be figuring it out, but here's evidence that shows when you put X, Y, and Z together, it actually works. So regardless of what stage you're at in your grant process, use outside resources to point to why what you're doing works. If you have the data, use it. And then pulling back from another point earlier is collaboration. Even if you and another organization are not exchanging funds, what other kinds of partnerships? Maybe they'll let you use their space. Maybe you can be referral partners. Like, if some of your clients need their services, you can connect them, or vice versa. And really trying to capture the story along the way of what you do. A lot of funders want to see the story, not just the impact of what you do. So capturing videos, pictures, testimonials along the way makes what you do seem more personable. It's not just, Christina telling me how great her organization is, but it's really the women who are impacted by the services that you all offer that can share, this is why I'm better off because I came in contact with this organization.
I love that. Thank you. Budgets, right? That's a big part of also for proposals. Some people struggle with it, kind of like what to ask or how to kind of share what they need, right? So do you have any tips on that budget piece? And that was my last thing about grants, guys. This is a freebie for you all.
It's a big one. The biggest thing is make sure that what you're asking for aligns with your impact numbers. And that may seem like a really duh thing, but if you're asking for, say, I don't know, $10,000 and you're saying you're going to impact 1,000 people, there's going to be a disconnect there, right? Like, how in-depth are you actually impacting those 1,000 people for only $10,000? Or vice versa. If you're asking for $100,000 and you're only impacting 10 people, they might question unless it's really, really intensive services. So just make sure that, like, you have your numbers of what your impact is, like, per person, your dollar per impact. So if you know that it's going to take $50 to fund services per one person, make sure that number is all encompassing. The staff support, the supplies, the space. Like, try to get as close as you can to a per person dollar amount. It's going to make capacity for grants so much simpler because you already have that formula built in.
I love that. Thank you so much for helping our listeners win that next proposal. And tell Faith, tag Faith, right?
Please.
Tag us as well when you get that next proposal.
Yeah. And what would you say, Faith, are some of the most common misconceptions when either starting a nonprofit, scaling a nonprofit? So I think, I think even starting is one piece of it, but the scaling aspect, right, of, how do you continue to grow and to really ensure, to your earlier point about that impact piece? And so what would you say are some of like the biggest misconceptions that you've seen in working with different clients in this sphere?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. I think some of the biggest misconceptions is people feel like nonprofits can't take money unless it's a donation. And I know we've talked a couple of times about the social impact model, right? Like where you can charge for things. A lot of nonprofits don't realize that you can charge for goods and services. Obviously, there needs to be good accounting going on and making sure that you're able to prove that the money's going back into the cause. But I think too many nonprofits just like assume they put their 501c out there and people are going to give you money. Like it's still a business. You still have to do things that people want to pay for. And a lot of funders don't want to be the only funder, right? Like a lot of people, again, I've seen like, well, I have my 501c3. Like, why is money not coming in? Because you have to have money in the door before a lot of funders want to give you money. So how can you bring money in? Yes, you can sell goods and services, having a financially invested board, having corporate or individual donors. Like there's a lot of different ways that nonprofits can bring in money outside of grants. Yes, grants are an important piece, but they're also a more long-term strategy. Oftentimes it takes weeks or even months to hear back on proposals. It's not going to be a quick solution to your problem if funding is your concern.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that, because I think that that's, that's a major, major thing, even for organizations like ours. We are going into our 12th year of service.
Congratulations.
Thank you. This coming January. But even recognizing that, like funding shifts, understanding that revenue generation and diversifying what that revenue generation is so critically important. And I think to your earlier point, it's like when you're starting a nonprofit, you're which you should be, very focused on the mission, focused on the programs, trying to ensure that you have quality programs that are actually, hitting the impacts and hitting the deliverables as to why you started your organization. And then over a period of time, you start to think about, okay, now we have to figure out like how do we really build an operations team around said programs. And then you get to the space of then, okay, now we're starting to be able to capture that data, tell the story, find partners in this work together. And then you get to that space of just being like, oh, wait, now we have to figure out how to diversify revenue. And I think I appreciate you mentioning like goods for services or fees for goods for services, but also thinking about like as an organization, we do struggle a lot with like what we ask for, because obviously it's intended to be very community focused and wanting to meet people where they're at, but also having to think about the financial integrity of the organization for future generations. So even if you're a founder, and I think that's hard for founders especially, but understanding like your organization is bigger than you and it's bigger than, you being the founder. It's like you want to make sure that that work stays there for like generations. Like maybe you're on a plaque on a wall, right? Like these are our founders or this is our person, but the financial integrity, and not only just the financials, like just the mission, the heart, the why. And so can you talk a little bit about like as organizations are in this space, which is where we are right now, is trying to think through like, we don't want to be so heavily dependent on grants and foundations because we recognize that changes year by year and there's multiple reasons why those things change. But I guess how do you really evaluate as an organization some key revenue generating opportunities outside of like charging for direct services? Like how do you kind of go through that discovery phase as to like what are we really good at to be able to like put a price tag that we can go out and generate revenue for organizations?
Yeah, it's a hard transition, right? When you get to the place of you're sustainable, kind of, and you've got a small team, and then you're like, well, what's next? And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, like you aren't these big organizations that have so much revenue that they don't know what to do with. But it also gives you the chance to be really creative. And that's the thing that I like. I like being creative and putting your kind of spice and spin on it. So first and foremost, I think it's like what you said, Christina, is figuring out what is unique about your organization. What values do you really want to bring out to the community? And what are good services, et cetera, that you can do that really align with that. So, I know, for example, y'all's organization, you're probably not going to be going put on like a men's empowerment workshop. Nothing against our allies, but it's not true to your brand. So is it workshops? Is it, digital products? Is it just like you would with a business? Is it, maybe you all getting paid to go speak about your story and how you got here? I know some founders will write books about their journey. You all are authors as well. There's a lot of different things that you can do. I think it's really just about what do you want the impact to be able to then work backwards. So what's the end goal? And then work backwards from there, whether it's a revenue goal, an impact goal, or a little bit of both. You all are in a very unique position that you have your physical space. Not every small nonprofit has that to be able to rent out or, have that capacity. But I also think looking at what businesses in the community do you want to partner with? Yes, people automatically go to these large scale organizations like Victoria's Secret or Bed Bath & Beyond. And don't get me wrong, they do a lot of good in the community. But sometimes there are small micro businesses that maybe their gift won't be as significant, but it could be a really good long-standing partnership to be able to grow new programming, to be able to use their space, to be able to get in front of their clients or to get in front of their staff. For example, I had a client recently that she went to a small business and they were able to offer free coaching and mentoring to the people within their services. So yeah, it wasn't a monetary gift. It was an in-kind gift. But those services typically, can cost hundreds or thousands of dollars. And through that partnership, she was able to secure for her clients career coaching and mentoring that would have typically cost a lot of money. So being able to utilize resources in that way, not just monetary, which again is always important, but are there in-kind opportunities out there that maybe certain small businesses, like for mine, for example, I may not be able to go give you $100,000 gift, but are there connections, resources, or services that I offer that if you can find a mutually beneficial partnership, that would be able to help grow your impact that way too.
I love that. Me too. Yeah. Well, I feel like, we've already learned so much.
I know, like the notes.
Yeah. And I think it's also a reminder, right? Because I think especially when you're in the thick of so many things that I'm like, man, I've heard this before, but I forgot, right?
Or you hear it like 7 times.
Right. Or I need to circle back to okay, one more time. And so I really appreciate a lot of what you've shared today because I think oftentimes whether you're a small business owner or a nonprofit leader, or even if you're just working in any particular setting right now, it can feel like you need additional tips, services, strategies. And so recognizing that you're not alone and feeling like you might not know what to do and I think the worst thing we can do is sit with that by ourselves and pretend that we have it all figured out and pretend that we have a strategy. Because the longer you pretend, I believe it's like a game, it's a sink or swim. And so you can sink if you want to be ego driven and not ask for help. But to your point, it's about partnerships. It's about collaboration at the end of the day. And so as we get ready to wrap, I would love just any last minute, and secondly, I want to hear any last minute tips or tools that you might want to share with our listeners, specifically rooted in this topic. But then also, how can folks find you? If they want to work with you or they're interested in, just having a discovery call with you, what does that process look like?
Sure. So a couple tips first, and then how to connect with me and go from there. So first and foremost is I think as a leader, regardless if you're a leader for yourself or another person's organization, is really take the time to get to know who you are. I have always said that entrepreneurship is the biggest professional development journey you can ever go on, and it's constantly evolving. But even if you're not an entrepreneur, if you work in the nonprofit space, if you work for someone else, take the time to really get to know who you are and what makes you tick. A free resource that is out there that I literally recommend to everyone is the free Saboteurs Assessment from Positive Intelligence. It ranks your self-limiting beliefs. And so as a leader, when you know what things are going to rear their ugly head, it's really easy to identify those and be able to act accordingly. that has been a really life-changing tool for me. The second piece of that, which goes along with the first, is constantly being investing in yourself. And that can be personally, professionally, in all the different areas of our lives. Like, take care of yourself. Go to the gym. Eat the healthy meals. Like, find times with your friends. Like, do the things that we all know that we need to do, because life is too short to only focus on work. There's so much more to life, even if you're doing work for the right reason. And then the last thing is, don't go it alone. Like you mentioned, Christina, is ask for help or have an accountability partner. This world is hard enough without us making it harder on ourselves. It's actually a sign of strength to ask for help. And whether it's you need help figuring out your strategy, you need help figuring out your next step, or you're just caught in that cycle of indecision. Because a lot of us that are leaders have really good insight, like we know what we need to do, but then we get in that cycle of what if. And there's some kind of quote out there I'm going to butcher. It's not going to sound as good, but like the time between thought and decision is really what makes the impact of a leader. And so if you know what you need to do and you're just not doing it, like sometimes bringing an outside person in. Like, I know a lot of the things I need to do in protecting my time and calendar, and I say it out loud all the time, but then it literally took me bringing in a fractional COO for her to be like, Faith, why do you have 30 meetings on your calendar this week? And like, you're right. I would never tell my client to have 30 meetings on their calendar. But we know what we need to do, and sometimes we forget to do it, right? So having accountability is so important, whether it's a friend, a business partner, an outside coach or consultant, a system, like time blocking your calendar. And the last one for this, I will say, is don't be afraid to use old school systems. Like, I've gotten back to using a planner and physically writing out my to-do list, and it has made my brain so much more quiet. Instead of having my to-do list up here, I actually physically write out my to-do list before I put it in my project management tool. And for some reason, that like writing it is actually getting it out of my head versus it just like cycling on repeat and waking me up at 3 o'clock in the morning. So those are my couple of tips. For anyone wanting to connect with me, a lot of our information is on our website at www.allocivitas.com. There is a free coffee chat link that you can book sometime on my calendar. It has my email. I might even have my cell phone, which probably needs to be taken off of there, but it's our social media. But any way that people want to reach out to me is a good chance to start the conversation. And even if I am not the right person to support, I'm always willing to be a resource and connect.
Thank you. That is awesome. There's something that we haven't asked. This is the last question, I think. We haven't asked this in a long time, but I'm curious. Like, if you had any advice for like your younger self today, looking back, what is that one thing that you would say to yourself today?
The hard work is worth it. There were some really hard and dark times, but looking back, it's all been worth it.
Awesome. Thank you
so much, Faith. We really appreciate having you, and certainly we're going to have you back because you have some other big things that we didn't talk about today.
I know.
But when we get when you're ready to launch some of these other things, there's like 2 or 3 we talked about just even in the lobby. So we won't put you on the spot today. But when you're ready next year at the top of the year, when you're ready to launch or talk about your second venture, something else that's coming out soon, you know, all the things.
Like 6 more things.
Yeah,
but,
6 more. But it's all like exciting and kind of it's all intertwined with what you do and what you believe in. And so we'll be excited to bring you back to talk about those things.
Yes.
And here, as we end every one of our episodes the exact same way, we always like to remind our viewers and our listeners that it's bigger than you. So on the count of 3, we're going to wrap up this particular episode together that way.
So I count us off and then we say it's bigger than you together.
Okay.
So
it's bigger than you.
Thank you so much for listening today. We're excited and we hope that you follow us on
Instagram, True Print for Life, YouTube channel, also True Print for Life. And make sure that you share, like, watch our videos. Make sure that you follow us on all streaming platforms.